Hello everyone, this is Hovik Manucharyan.
And I'm Asbed Bedrossian.
And today we are back with another episode of our Artsakh update with Gev Iskajyan. Gev is with the ANC of Artsakh. He lives in Stepanakert, and we regularly have these discussions with him to cover the latest updates and what's going on. As we're recording, it's September 2, which is the 32nd anniversary of the Proclamation of Independence of Artsakh, and also today is day 264 of the blockade of Artsakh, which was introduced on December 12, 2022.
Hey, Gev, how are you doing?
Hey, Gev, how's it going?
Hey, guys, good to be on.
Same here.
Yeah. And incidentally, we're recording this at 1 a.m. on September 2, so I want to congratulate you, Gev, and all of our listeners on the Independence Declaration of Artsakh in 1991. This year is the 32nd anniversary. So first, there have been a lot of changes. It seems like every time we talk every few weeks, but changes keep accumulating. So we have the resignation of Arayik Harutyunyan to talk about. We have a new head of the Russian Peacekeepers we should probably cover. Today is September 2, so we can talk about all the rallies that are going on. But let's begin with the most major, I guess, some would say shocking, but it has been essentially reverberating in different circles. The news about Arayik Harutyunyan's resignation. It went into effect September 1st, but on August, 30th, he announced that he has decided to resign from his position, and the new interim president is Gev Iskajyan, who will serve for a short while until a new president is elected by the Parliament of Artsakh, because of special procedures for emergency rule situations. So, Gev, wanted to get your take on what's going on, and specifically, how things came about to the eventual resignation, and what can we expect in the coming weeks?
So I think, look, there's been growing discontent against Harutyunyan, you can say, for the majority of this blockade, but one can also go further back into, post-war Artsakh. His affiliations with Nikol Pashinyan, some of the statements that he's made, and then the dire situation that we're facing today with, 260 plus days of a blockade here. I think all of that accumulates into a strong, sense of discontent. And look, when somebody is the president and somebody that's worked within, state ministries, has worked within governance for years upon years, like Harutyunyan has, it's not as easy as people think to build up that strong sense of discontent, because so many of your public workers, so many of the appointments were made by Harutyunyan himself. So I think that, the population has reached that critical juncture, and we saw that accumulate into a protest. If you guys remember, about 3-4 days ago here in Artsakh, there was a protest in front of the National Assembly calling for, an emergency meeting. And many speculate that is when Harutyunyan decided that he was going to resign. And now we are where we are today.
Gev, shortly before his resignation, there was another resignation, that of the state minister, or maybe dismissal, I'm not sure. So the previous state minister, Gurgen Nersisyan, resigned or was dismissed, and Samvel Shahramanyan was immediately appointed. It seems like the appointment of Shahramanyan was Arayik Harutyunyan's final act as president before his resignation. What can you tell us about Shahramanyan? There are rumors that he is the favorite of the Azad Hayrenik party to become the next president, and essentially Azad Hayrenik, Arayik Harutyunyan's party, controls a majority in parliament. So it's very likely that they will elect whoever they want. So what can you tell us about Samvel Shahramanyan, and how are things going to unfold in the coming weeks?
So professionally, Shahramanyan's served mostly in the security sector here in Artsakh. He's been the head of the National Security Service here, the NSS, and he's also been the secretary of the Security Council, fairly recently. So that's where his background comes from. In terms of, what we would expect from him, look, I don't see him being this like vocal, outspoken type of president. He's kind of somebody that does things behind the scenes, and even within Artsakh, his name recognition isn't very high, much alone in the diaspora or in the international community. So I'm expecting him to work on things, but I would say that he's not going to come out and make some grandiose statements. We're not going to see him speak as much as Harutyunyan. And in terms of what type of president would he be if he is to get elected, which there's kind of a high chance because, as you mentioned, the ruling party controls, I believe, about 18 of the 36 votes within the Artsakh parliament. I think we're going to have to judge him by his actions. But I also think that the opposition moving forward, the opposition within Artsakh is going to have a broader role. Obviously, with the appointment of Gev Iskajyan as the president of the National Assembly, and on top of that, with the resignation of Harutyunyan, I would expect to see a little bit more of a leveled playing field in terms of governance in Artsakh.
Gev, do you expect Shahramanyan to be an agent of change together with Iskajyan as the head of the parliament?
Yeah, I can't directly comment on Shahramanyan because my familiarity with him and most of the folks' familiarity with him is his previous history as NSS director, which was also before the war. So it's kind of difficult to judge, his actions during the war. And recently he was secretary of the Security Council. Look, what's most important in Artsakh moving forward is going to be how this quote-unquote negotiation process with Azerbaijan plays out. That is the one place where we have a certain sense of agency. There's a million things happening globally, geopolitically, where, to be frank about it, like it's not that much into the hands of the Artsakh government. Especially, there's a lot in the hands of the Armenian government. There's a lot in terms of the geopolitical brokers here. The one thing that we can control as Artsakhis, as the Artsakh government, is what happens moving forward in terms of things like the Aghdam Road, in terms of things like negotiations with Azerbaijan. And I think those issues are going to be the litmus tests for us in judging what the governance moving forward is going to be like.
Gev, speaking of geopolitics and also going back to Arayik's resignation, I want to put a question to both of you. Maybe he really didn't want to resign, right? Obviously, for many months, it came to a point where big names like Ruben Vartanian were even complaining on video that he had promised that he was going to resign, but he wasn't resigning. And he personally has a lot at stake. As one of the richest people in Artsakh for the past 20 years, he personally has a lot at stake in Artsakh. So the question is, who really wanted him gone? Was it Yerevan? Was it Moscow? Was it Aliyev? I personally, in a kind of an idealistic way, would like to think that the opposition made this happen. But I'm sure that the geopolitics had its own big say in this.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say that Yerevan wanted him gone because, regardless of the change, if you guys remember, before the war, Arayik Harutyunyan was the candidate that Nikol Pashinyan supported and endorsed wholeheartedly. And even after the war, when a civil contract won an election, one of the first images that we get is Arayik Harutyunyan at their offices congratulating Pashinyan. So, whatever qualms they may have had in the last year or so, I still don't, regardless of that, I still don't think Pashinyan was going to find any partner here that was going to be as strong of a one that, Harutyunyan was. So there, I can't say that it was Pashinyan. There's some, kind of rumors circulating that it's something that Russia may have wanted. There's some rumors also circulating that, and I don't know how true these are, that Azerbaijan also wanted Harutyunyan to resign. What those entail and the validity of those things, we're going to have to see as we move forward.
Yeah, definitely. The Armenian opposition wanted him to resign, and he was Nikol's favorite. And for instance, the Republican Party of Armenia, who also have allies in Artsakh. For instance, Bako Sahakyan is very much allied with the Republicans. The Republican Party of Armenia expressed happiness about the resignation and Shahramanyan's appointment. Yeah, I mean, I think anything else could be just guessing. We could say, any number of outside forces, but we can just, probably analyze based on whose interests. And for one thing, I can say that the Armenian opposition wanted Arayik Harutyunyan gone, and Arayik Harutyunyan is gone. I think that any leader's ability to make decisions and be independent in Artsakh now is very much degraded, much more degraded than it was 2 years or 3 years ago. So, what can we expect now? Can we expect change? It's going to be very bit difficult. One of the major issues discussed, which is what I want to talk about, is this unblocking the Bedrossian corridor, which the Azerbaijanis have been illegally blockading and trying to show to the world that they are humanists and they're trying to supply Artsakh through this road in Aghdam. And I believe that was one of the also major factors that played into the resignation, because many people were against that. I don't know if Arayik was for it, but maybe Arayik wasn't just able to make that important decision to reject it. And I know that, for instance, Gev Iskajyan has firmly said that they have made a decision to reject, aid from the tormentor to the Aghdam road. What are your thoughts about this, Gev?
Yeah, and let me add one more thing to that. What's the downside of accepting some of that aid and throwing the drivers back out to their side and just taking the trucks?
And I'll just add also that the Russians have actually offered to drive in the aid from Aghdam. But I think that it's a principled position that Artsakh authorities are currently taking, and I'll let Gev explain.
Yeah, so in terms of opening the Aghdam road itself for commercial use, for any type of use as a bridge between, Artsakh and the Azerbaijani regime, that is a strong no on behalf of Artsakh. It's a strong no on behalf of the Artsakh government. There has been a proposition, and this is through the mediation of the Russian peacekeepers, that they go pick up that aid. However, that road remains closed. The Russians stay as mediators and bring the supplies in. While I am opposed to both scenarios, the second one is not as harsh as opening up the Lachin corridor. And I also don't know if the Azeris would go for the second one, because they care very little about bringing aid into Artsakh, and they care mostly about the integration process starting up through the opening of that road, and as a PR stunt for the international community. I cannot say how the situation will develop, but I would say keep an eye on it in the coming days.
Gev, the head of the Russian peacekeepers was replaced again. We know that it's a rotating position, and apparently there was, it's a 6-month term, but it seemed like there was a very quick change between Lentsov coming in and Lentsov going. First of all, we talked about it during this series of podcasts, which means it can't have been longer than 6 months, or maybe it's close to that. So the new head of the peacekeepers, the fourth one, his name is, I believe, Kulakov. Interestingly, translates into fist. What are his credentials? Why the change now? Do you think this is motivated by any political calculations, or it's just a regular rotation?
It's tough to say that it's a regular rotation, because you would have, if it's, just going through the motions, you would have expected Letsov's term to be longer than it was. I believe it was even less than 6 months, and we've had, while it is a rotating position, we've had people stay on for much, much longer than that. Letsov's term is the shortest, so there might be something to say about that. There's there's two factors here. One is the fact that before Letsov, the last guy, he was kind of relieved when people in Artsakh started not, there's this growing discontent about the fact that the Russian peacekeepers weren't doing much themselves in terms of the road being closed, in terms of access to food, and those things. And then, Letsov came, and there was people here that were expecting a change from that. We actually saw the situation deteriorate. So the last two haven't been great. But the one thing I would say is how much decision-making power is in their hands. That is an answer that I do not have, and I don't think that's an answer many people in Artsakh, including the government, have. So we have to see how it develops. But I would say, I can't say what that reason is, but I would say it's highly unusual for a general to be termed out this quickly here.
Yes, yeah, indeed. Okay, well, I want to jump to the next topic, which is September 2. As you know, in 1991, September 2, Artsakh declared its independence, and until 2020, it really was, independent. In many ways, it had many functioning institutions and armed forces, and we're now seeing forceful, humiliating degradation of that independence, to the point of keeping people starved in order to achieve political aims by Azerbaijan. Sadly, maybe also even with the silent, help from Armenia. But we know that there are a lot of events around the world organized by the ARF, AYF, and other maybe even organizations to commemorate the September 2 date. What do you think is the importance of this commemoration? What message can you pass to our listeners about that?
I think the times call for us to treat, this anniversary, this date, as more than just a date of commemoration, as a day of action now. It has to transform into that, because I'm not one of those that believes that if we do nothing, Artsakh will remain independent. I think there is a strong chance. There is a strong chance that all the forces on Earth, including our enemies, want to see Artsakh lose its independence. And the only way that we maintain that is through action, is through work. Today is about making sure that we put in the work, that we put in the requisite action to see a free and independent Artsakh. And I think there are two things, hindering us today from that goal. One is a government in Armenia that strongly supports Artsakh, that strongly supports Artsakh's independence, that is willing to do what it takes to secure and safeguard not just the people of Artsakh, but our statehood as well. And secondly, we need to be raising the type of global attention necessary to bring light to the people of Artsakh, their plight, and the horrors that they've been going through for the last 260 days. And I think that's what these protests aim to do, to kind of target those 2 points and to make sure that, there is a 35th anniversary of Artsakh's independence and the 40th, and we celebrate those anniversaries in a free and independent Artsakh.
Indeed. And the only thing I would add to that is my own calls for everyone to make an effort to attend. In Glendale, if you're listening to this from Glendale, there is an event at 7:30 p.m. on Artsakh Street on September 2. And Armenia is going to be at 6 p.m. at the Freedom Square. And before closing, I would also like to extend my condolences to the three heroes who perished today because of the Azerbaijani shooting on the border of Armenia. It seems that Azerbaijan is intent on ever escalating this conflict, both with Armenia and with Artsakh. Our respects to our heroes, and thank you for joining us, Gev.
Gev, thanks for joining us.
Good to be on. We'll talk soon.